Welcome back to Momentum Trading Group videos. We're going to go over some Candlestick Basics. Now, the thing that I would just want to go over with you again, just so we can all understand, basically what we're doing is we're going to be comparing days here. So whatever time frame you're dealing with is going to be what your candle selection is going to be. But here we're just comparing days, and that isn't as important for us. And again, just as a brief overview, this is the high of the day. The low of the day is down here at 20. The market opened at 50 and it closed at 25 on that particular day. A green candle, again, this was the low for the day, the high for the day. It opened here and it closed here. But really what we care most about when we start talking about candles is we look for correlations and relationships. Now, the very first thing that we look for is we look at this high versus this high. You'll see you have lower highs, and then here you have lower lows, and then here you have a lower high, then here, and then here you have a lower low. So we start noticing relationships and correlation changes. Here now you have a higher low and a higher high, and so you can see how this correlation has started to shift, and this creates what we start to call a pivot. Now, as far as a buy signal, what we need to also see happen is we need to see where the closing price is. Right here, once we see this correlation change, we need to see where this closing price is in relationship to its candle and the previous candle. So just to give you an idea, this particular candle here, trading roughly at the midpoint of previous, but it's trading near the lows of current. So when we start looking at this here, you can see higher highs, higher lows, but it's trading at the highs of both previous and current. This here would actually be what we'd be waiting for to actually see that we had this confirmation or this bounce or this pivot in the direction, as long as it's in the direction of a trend. So let's show you kind of this in real time, just so you guys can see how this would work and what we look for as it relates to bottoms. So again, if we are looking at this particular candle, we have lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, higher low, higher high, closing at the highs of current and previous. So if we were to buy right there, and let's just put an indication of a buy, you can see that beyond this candle, the low of this candle, price never got below that before it went higher. That's what we're trying to identify. Here, the next candle, higher high, higher low. Here you have equal low, higher high. Here you have equal high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. And then you see it start to work itself out. So as we talk about identifying trends, that's actually what we're looking for. Is we're looking for this correlation relative to where does this candle close versus here. Now you can see this candle here, higher high, higher low, but notice it closed at the midpoint of current near the highs of previous. We would not have taken a trade here. Another thing we're going to talk about is actual trends, so you guys can get a little bit better feel for when we're talking about the different styles of trends. You'll get a little bit more familiar with this, and you can see the longer term trend here. We really are somewhat sideways. We would identify a level of support through here. We would identify a level of resistance through here. So real briefly, what that really is saying is that support is just like the floor of a house and resistance is like the ceiling of the house. So you can see how price has traded within that range, going back to January of 2014. So the last 9 months, this really hasn't been trending, and this would be considered somewhat of a sideways trend. So you again buy low near the 1100 values, which are down here, and then once you get up to that 1200 value, we could possibly start seeing some resistance as far as that goes. Now, in here, you'll also notice that we have different trends. Remember, by definition, trend is higher highs and higher lows. So we also look at those, and how you identify those is very similar to what we just went over as we were talking about pivots. So we'll go ahead and release or delete this box, you can see this down move here. You can see lower highs, lower lows, but it's retesting highs of current, lows of previous. Here, higher, low, higher high, closing above previous high. This would actually potentially be a buy signal. Here, higher high, higher low, retesting highs of both current and previous. Here, lower high, lower low, closing below the current, below the low of current and previous. So that's a bearish sign there. Next candle, higher low, lower high, retesting highs of current, midpoint of previous, and it bounces. So what we start to see is you compare this low to this low, and then to this low, and then this high to this high. You can see we had this pattern here which indicated whatever had happened here is over. So we'll just play this along just so you guys can see it. So if we had these four moves here, these would be higher highs, higher lows. Next candle over, lower high, higher low. If we had caught in this trade here, we would still be in it because, and I'll explain why here. Here you have higher low, equal high. Here you have equal high, lower low, closing below at the lows of there. We would take that trade off right there. Next candle, lower high, lower low, retesting the midpoint of current and the low of previous. Here you have lower high, lower low, retesting the highs of current, lows of previous, but because we're seeing the highs of current, this indicates that there could be support coming. We just need to see higher highs, higher lows, closing above that high. There it is. Higher low, higher high, closing above that high. Next candle, higher lows, higher highs, trading above the highs of both current and previous. This is an impulse. Next candle, higher highs, higher lows, trading above the highs of current and previous. Next candle, higher highs, higher lows, trading in the highs of current and previous. Now here we have an equal low and lower high, but remember we still have to have that relationship of lower highs, lower lows before we think this market's going lower or pulling back. Here, lower highs, lower lows, retesting highs of current, lows of previous, we'd still be in. Now we would be out, lower high, lower low, retesting lows of highs of current and previous. So we would have gotten in here, we would have gotten out there. Next candle, now we start looking again, just like we did back in here with this hammer. We have lower highs, lower lows, but now it's retesting highs of current and previous. If we get a close above here, we're buying. There it is. Higher low, higher high, retesting highs of current and previous, close above high, we're buying. Higher highs, higher lows, retesting highs of current and previous. Again, higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. Higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. We're still in, even though it closed lower than where it opened, it's still in an uptrend here. Higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. Higher lows, higher highs, retesting lows of current, midpoint of previous. Now we're out. Lower highs, lower lows, retesting lows of current and previous. Here, you have lower highs, lower lows. Even though it's a bullish candle, we don't buy that yet. We don't buy this one either. Even though we have higher low, higher high, we need to see a close above that high there, so we don't buy there either. Now we buy higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. Again, higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. Higher lows, higher highs, retesting highs of current and previous. Lower high, higher low, we're still in. Higher high, higher low, we're still in. Now we're out. That's a good example of weakness there. Lower highs, lower lows, retesting lows of current and previous. So you can see out of this one thing we would have caught trade there, trade there, trade there, trade there. Got both of these little movements, all those little pivots. Now we can see this was our previous support level. We've now come back to this level. So if this breaks this low, which it does here, it goes lower there, this indicates a potential trend reversal because remember, by definition of a trend, higher highs, higher lows as it breathes, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, lower low than here. So we could start to see this go down, as there it is, starting to go lower. Again, lower highs, lower lows. Here you had higher low, lower high. Here you have lower low, lower high. Higher low, lower high. Now you can see we're in a downtrend because we have this, so we anticipate this putting in a higher low. Higher high, higher low. We don't trade counter trend. There we go. This would be a short. We would take this trade here to the downside because we have lower highs, lower lows closing below the current candle down to the downside. Lower highs, lower lows retesting lows of current and previous. Lower highs, lower lows retesting lows of current and previous. Equal low, higher high. This is where we would take the trade off. Here you have higher lows, lower highs, higher highs, higher lows, but now because we're in a downtrend, we would not be buying this candle where back here we would have been. Higher low, higher high, retesting lows of current, midpoint of previous. Equal high, lower low, retesting lows of current. Next candle could be our short. Now we're short. So we're taking this lower, lower highs, lower lows, retesting lows of current and previous. Lower highs, lower lows, retesting lows of current and previous. Higher lows, higher highs, retesting lows of current, midpoint of previous. Equal highs, higher low. So this doesn't look great. Up, now we're okay. Because we were still in it, we had gotten short here, it had come up a little bit, went long down here. Lower highs, lower lows, retesting lows of the current candle and below the previous. Lower highs, lower lows, retesting the midpoint of current below the low of previous. Here you can see equal high, closing there. We don't like that candle. This candle, we're still okay. We have higher lows, higher highs. Again, you can see this downtrend here. And because it's closing at the midpoint of current or previous, we're still okay. Again, equal, the higher high, but it's closing within itself. Lower low, higher low. Still don't like it. Right here, we'd be out. The reason we would be out is we have higher low, higher high, or equal high, trading at the highs of current and previous. So we would have caught in this drop here, we would have covered there. So we would not be buying this because you have these lower lows, lower highs. Okay, so this would be another short indication. Again, higher highs, higher lows, retesting highs of current and previous. Higher lows, lower highs, retesting the midpoint of current. So you can see right through here, this would fake people out. But what you're remembering is you've got to have lower highs and lower lows. You cannot have higher lows, or excuse me, higher highs and lower lows. Can't do that. We have to follow the sentence. Okay, we've got support, pivot to the upside. Now we're just waiting for a pullback here. Next candle could be our pullback or our trade back to the upside because here we have lower lows, higher highs retesting highs of current or previous. Next candle could be a buy. Nope. Higher lows, higher highs closing within the previous candle. Technically, this is a buy because it is above the close of the previous, but we're seeing weakness there. So this would be a proceed with caution, but that is a buy candle. So we would have gotten in this candle, and we would have obviously worked out so far. Higher lows, equal highs. Lower highs, lower lows. So again, probably would have broken even on this trade. If we would have waited till the next day, that is a buy candle there. And that's where we currently are to date. So that is a buy signal. We would anticipate this to keep going up into this zone. And this is good practice. You guys should do this as much as you possibly can in going through this example.